We touched on Ben Kindle, of course, a number one selection by the Penguins back in June. Another one in that first round, Bill Zonnon, and I know that he's been slowed by injury, and I don't know if slow is the right description because he's so fast. I don't even know if injuries can really slow him down. But the fact that he's missed some time, what are your thoughts about what he can do when he is 100% healthy?
Yeah, Dan, I'm really bummed that Pittsburgh didn't get a good taste of Bill Zonnon in the fall because I think he's a player that's going to endear himself to this city. And if you think about some of the guys that have come through that have become fan favorites, the people that love that people love to watch, going all the way back to Gary Roberts, Patrick Hornquist, right? They're all Bill Zonnon type players. He's the kind of guy that the coach can confidently deploy no matter what the circumstance is, because you know there's going to be a wave of momentum that comes your way after he hits the ice. Is very relentless on the forecheck. I've thrown the Hornquist comparison around. I think Hornquist is another, or excuse me, Kunitz is another good one. Pulling from Penguins of past guys that are tenacious on the forecheck and annoy defensemen all night long. Whether that's crashing and banging in the boards, getting in front of the net, the great thing about Bill Zonner is that he's got this offensive upside that you saw blossom last season, where he developed into a very lethal shooter and a guy who can do a little bit of dangling in the neutral zone to create himself some time and space heading into the offensive zone. Obviously, again, slowed down this year by the injury, but scored in his first game back, had 2 points, seems to be on a roll and not missing a beat as he returns the lineup. But I think this is somebody that, as time wears on, and you see him again next fall as he comes through for prospect camp and in the preseason festivities. When he has his health, I think Pittsburgh will really, really love to watch Bill Zonnon play the game. It's a crash and bang style, high energy, high speed, mixing it up on the forecheck, and just somebody that's very easy to root for.
And I think Jesse, because he was the first rounder, even with the injuries, a lot of people are familiar with the name, at least in Penguins land, because they hear him. But you go a little deeper in some of these picks recently. One guy that I've seen you write about and you put some videos out about, which, by the way, you do an unbelievable job with the coverage of these prospects online. Like it's yeoman's work for people that don't get to see them all that often, and you make them very visible to a lot of people. And one guy who has certainly caught my eye that you cover a lot is Ryan Miller. And he's had a terrific year, fifth round pick for the Penguins in this prospect heavy edition draft that just happened this past June. Just kind of give us a synopsis of who this kid is, and is he potentially one of these? We've seen them throughout the years. I mean, Wes Clark has made a name for himself doing this a couple times. Is this one of these deep in the draft kind of finds potentially for the Penguins?
Yeah, Josh, I think so. I had a lot of fun putting the video together on Ryan Miller, and I caught him when he was in the middle of a 19 game point streak that ended up extending even longer than that. But I think the biggest thing I could say is that Portland felt confident at his age to make him captain this year, which you don't often see in somebody's draft plus one season. When you watch the way he interacts with his team, his behavior on the ice, and then just his approach to the game, his work ethic, it's very easy to see why they made that decision. This is a player who's a lot of fun to watch. He is dogged in all three zones. I think there are just certain players, Josh, that you watch and you say, despite this player's age, I can already see pro habits, right? I can already see things that place this player a step or two ahead of some of his peers, and the habits they have in the defensive zone, the investment they have in certain behaviors on the ice, and some of the less glamorous jobs that don't always catch the spotlight. That's Ryan Miller's game. And I think he's added a touch of confidence to his offense this year. You're seeing a little bit more from him in the dangle department, some niftiness with the hands, toe dragging, right? Spinoramas. I think, that sense of feeling it has been on display. But this is a player with, for me, pro potential, and screams to me as a guy that at the very least, Josh, is going to be a real impact player in someone's bottom six. I think, there's always that potential there that the offense has grown. We've seen it grow this year. But when you watch his approach to the game, relentless defensively, engaged in his own end, stripping pucks, creating offense from his defensive behaviors. And then just on the forecheck, he's, not the biggest guy on the ice, but he loves to skate right through people. There's a real no nonsense approach to how he likes to carry the puck in. Like I said, he's added some flair to that this year, but more often than not, he's just going to bowl somebody over. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's built tough and is a difficult a person to handle on offense as a result. So super strong. Again, when you hear about him from his coaches, great habits in the gym, right? These Wes Clark picks, the first word out of a lot of these coaches' mouth is dedicated to the game, student of the game. They love to be around the game. And it seems like Dubas and Clark are really investing a lot in players that love hockey, and sometimes love the less glamorous aspects of hockey, like blocking shots and getting dirty in the corners and, taking an elbow here or there. So Ryan Miller fits that bill. And I think, there's a prospect that, we're hopefully going to, see hit the ice again here soon in Tanner Howe. I think Ryan Miller and Tanner Howe are remarkably similar players. And the difference is I think Tanner Howe has that edge, that Marchand-like edge, where he's constantly goading, right? His mouth's running a lot. Ryan Miller is more of an action speaker, where he'll answer by, catching you in the corner and hitting you clean. But they're remarkably similar players. Just that pro style, no nonsense approach, super responsible in all three zones. And I think you're starting to see a lot of that from this general manager and his staff.
Jesse, let's stay with the fifth round, but go back a couple years. And I want to reference Zam Plante, who has really gotten up to a great start this year. What has sparked the ability or the opportunity for him to kind of get going? Not quite the numbers that Will Horkoff is putting up, but still enough to open your eyes.
Honestly, his brother. So he's playing with his brother, Max, who's a Detroit Red Wings prospect. And watching the two of them from Minnesota Duluth is just a lot of fun. It is just a lot of fun. There is a natural chemistry between them, and you can tell that they've been playing hockey together since they were 5 years old. They have their own bloodlines, right, that they report through. But they, at one point, were number one and number two in college hockey scoring this season, heading into the month of November, and have really, taken a big lift for that Minnesota Duluth team, who was young last year, went through their struggles. But the Plante brothers have been phenomenal, and I think that Max has been a little bit more of the puck hunter, and some of the mixing it up on the forecheck, puck distribution, whereas Zam's been, again, much like Horkoff, right? A great finisher, and he's obviously adept at setting his brother up too. He's very good at finding the two of them. They find each other quite a bit on the ice. I did a piece in Elite Prospects with just, it's one of those things where people often struggle to define chemistry in hockey, but when you watch the two of them play, they rarely look at each other. They're just making these no-look behind-the-back passes. There's no yelling involved. It's just this innate sense of where's my brother going to be. So it's been a lot of fun, and I think that the first few years there were, again, that was a really young team who took their lumps upon Plante's arrival, through present day when they've turned it around. But he's earned this. And I know his stats maybe weren't as glorious in the early years of his development, but the circumstances around him weren't great. And I think that team's grown together now. They've gelled, they've added pieces. And you're starting to see the fruits of that now. So that's a player that a little bit more, as far as the pro game is concerned, you're looking at a little bit of a quicker ROI since he has been drafted now for a couple years. But I expect him to be a player that could potentially be impactful to Wilkes-Barre Scranton as soon as his journey in college is over.
Well, Jesse, those are some, I don't want to say buzz names, but I think there's some of the more popular names in Penguin prospect land. But like we said, you're all over this from top to bottom. Before we let you go, are there any other names Penguins fans should be paying attention to that are in the pipeline that maybe aren't front of mind right now or getting the most press clippings, but are making some noise and some headway as far as their development is concerned?
Yeah, Josh, I always have time to talk about Quinn Beauchesne, who is
Okay.
the defenseman that the Penguins selected out of Guelph in the Ontario Hockey League. Got sidelined earlier this year with an injury, got a little bit of a late start, but is picked right back up where he left off. Again, not playing on a glamorous situation. His team's struggling. They're in a rebuilding transitional phase, but he's still a lot of fun to watch. And he's such an aggressive, proactive defenseman. He doesn't wait for things to happen. He's out there. He's constantly attacking, keeps a really strong gap. And then when he steals the puck, the offense he can generate after that is a lot of fun to watch. So has a fun tradition, Josh, of his billet mother in the CHL that he stays with. He was on a bit of a dry run last year. He wasn't scoring. And she took, she's a bit of a holistic naturalist, if you will, and they started setting mason jars of water out at night. And she said that the power of the moon would jazz the water up, and get him to score, and it did. So he's stuck with that now. So they call him the Moon Man up there in Guelph, because he sets that water out at night, lets the moon power soak it up, and then I guess that gets him to score. So, but a really good two-way defenseman, guys, and somebody that, again, just such a motor. Really great skater, and is a real bulldog on the ice in all three zones.
You've mentioned some great names. If we stay with the name alone, Cruz Lucius. I mean, what a great name. I mean, come on, he's got to be on your radar, right?
It reminds you a little bit of like a villain in an old '90s hockey movie, right? Yeah. Another guy having a great season in college. And at times the team has really looked to him to be the sole provider of offense in tough situations. He has scored some big goals this year in dramatic fashion, late in games, comeback style stuff to seal games off when the team needs him. But you get a lot. I'll tell you, you really get a Brian Rust vibe, I think, when you watch him, even down to when Rust was at Notre Dame, taking back to that same age. I think they're very similar players, right? I think that they're tough to take down. They hunt open space really well, and they have unassumingly great shots. And I think with Lucius, you add a touch of speed to that. His ability to break away from opponents is what has really set him apart this season. His first and second step is greatly improved. So when that puck hits his stick and he hits those jets, he's a tough guy to catch. So I think, again, looking forward to a pro debut from him in the not too distant future, but a player that certainly has made a name for himself at the college hockey level this year with, his ability to be involved in some really trademark moments for his team.
Well, Jesse, this has been some awesome stuff. Dan, I don't know if you have anything more to ask Jesse, but incredible detail. And like I said, I think you really do an awesome job following the Penguins, their prospects, and honestly, even outside of that, just everything you've done for the Athletic, elite prospects. I mean, it's been fun to follow along. Obviously, we'll continue, but thanks again for swinging by. This has been really insightful. Seriously,
I appreciate it anytime, gentlemen, and thank you both very much.
Oh, Lord Stanley, get me the brandy.